Samson, the strongest judge of Israel. After the days of Abdon, the 12th judge of Israel rose to prominence, a man whose name would become synonymous with strength and whose life story would resonate through the ages. This judge was Samson, a Nazirite chosen by God before his birth to deliver Israel from the oppression of the Philistines, Judges 13:16. Samson's story begins with his miraculous birth. An angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife, a barren woman, and foretold that she would bear a son. This son was to be a Nazirite from birth, dedicated to God, and there were specific instructions. He must not drink wine or other fermented drink. He must not eat anything unclean, and his hair was never to be cut as a symbol of this vow. Samson's destiny was to begin the deliverance of Israel from the Philistines, Judges 13:3-5. As Samson grew, his extraordinary strength became evident. One of his early exploits involved killing a lion with his bare hands. On his way to Timnah to arrange his marriage with a Philistine woman, a young lion came roaring towards him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as one would tear a young goat. However, he did not tell his parents what he had done. Judges 14:5-6. Later, when he returned to marry the woman, he turned aside to look at the lion's carcass, and in it he saw a swarm of bees and some honey. He scooped out the honey with his hands and ate it as he went along. He also gave some to his parents, and they ate it, but he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. This encounter led to the riddle he posed at his wedding feast. Out of the eater something to eat, out of the strong something sweet. Judges 14:8-9-14. Samson's marriage to the Philistine woman from Timnah led to further conflict with the Philistines. During the wedding feast, he posed his riddle to his 30 groomsmen, offering them 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes if they could solve it. When they could not, they coerced his wife into revealing the answer by threatening her and her family. She pleaded with Samson until he finally told her, and she passed the answer to the groomsmen. Furious at being tricked, Samson went to Ashkelon, killed 30 men, took their clothes, and gave them to the groomsmen. In his anger, he returned to his father's house, and his wife was given to one of his companions who had attended him at the feast. Judges 14:10-20. Later, during the wheat harvest, Samson returned to visit his wife, bringing a young goat as a gift. He found that her father had given her to his companion, believing Samson hated her. Her father then offered Samson her younger sister instead. Enraged, Samson declared that he would get even with the Philistines. He went out, caught 300 foxes, tied their tails together in pairs with torches, and set them loose in the Philistine fields, burning their grain, vineyards, and olive groves. In retaliation, the Philistines burned Samson's wife and her father to death. Judges 15:1-6. Samson responded by attacking the Philistines and slaughtering many of them. He then retreated to a cave in the rock of Etam. Judges 15:7-8. The Philistines pursued Samson, and with the men of Judah's assistance they captured him. Bound with new ropes, Samson was brought to the Philistines, but he broke free and, using the jawbone of a donkey, killed 1,000 of his enemies. After this victory, he called out to God in his thirst, and God provided water from a hollow place in the ground, reviving him. Judges 15:9-19. Despite his flaws and vengeful nature, Samson was a judge over Israel for 20 years. Judges 15:20. His greatest weakness, however, lay in his attraction to Philistine women. He visited a prostitute in Gaza, and when the Philistines planned to ambush him, he arose in the middle of the night, tore out the city gates along with their posts, and carried them to the top of a hill facing Hebron. Judges 16:1-3. This act demonstrated his incredible strength and defiance against the Philistines. Samson later fell in love with Delilah, who was bribed by the Philistine leaders to discover the secret of his strength. After 3 unsuccessful attempts, Samson finally revealed that his strength lay in his uncut hair. While he slept, Delilah had his hair shaved off and Samson's strength left him. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes and imprisoned him in Gaza, where he was put to grinding grain. Judges 16:4-21. In captivity, Samson's hair began to grow back. During a Philistine celebration in their temple, they brought Samson out to entertain them. Placed between the central pillars of the temple, Samson prayed to God to restore his strength one last time. God granted his request, and Samson pushed against the pillars with all his might, causing the temple to collapse, killing himself and thousands of Philistines. In his death, Samson achieved a greater victory over the Philistines than in his life. Judges 16:22-30. The story of Samson teaches us about the dangers of giving in to temptation and the importance of staying true to one's vows and divine purpose. Despite his failings, Samson's life demonstrates that God can use even flawed individuals to accomplish his will. The next judge after Samson was Eli, a priest and judge who presided over Israel, and whose story would bring its own lessons and challenges. 1 Samuel 1:4.